Now for our story. This afternoon, Randy Lane had been to see Kitt Calvert. Kitt was a patient at the Huntsville Sanitarium where she was under treatment after a mental breakdown. Randy had been seeing Kitt regularly. Each visit was more or less similar to the one before. But today was drastically different. Randy was in a thoughtful, sober mood as he drove home sometime later. Now, the young man parks the Lane pickup truck in the driveway outside his mother's neat farmhouse. As he strides up to the front porch, he finds Aunt Mary herself sitting on the porch. She has a colander filled with spring beans in her lap, which she's preparing for supper.
Hi, Mom.
Hello, son.
Always in a busy bee, aren't you? What you doing?
Getting supper ready. Randy, the rocking chair's over there by the hammock. Why don't you pull it up and make yourself comfortable?
Thanks, Mom, but I like sitting here on the steps.
Mind you don't get your good slacks all dirty.
I won't.
You sound rather tired, are you?
Oh, not exactly tired, Mom. Just kind of upset.
Is something wrong, Randy? Is it about Kitt?
Yeah. A lot of things happened over there today. Darn Ben Calvert. Honestly, I'd give anything if that guy were only about 20 years younger.
What then, Randy?
Well, I'd give him a beating he wouldn't forget.
Mm-hmm. And doing that would give you a lot of satisfaction. Might even be a good way to release your feelings. But I doubt if it would really accomplish anything with Ben.
Yeah, I know. He's quite a bully.
You're thinking of Ben's responsibility for Kitt? Said the doctor had forbidden Ben to see her.
He did. But you see, Dr. Larrabee was out of town, so Ben managed to bluff his way in. When I got there and heard that, I rushed right out to the garden, and that's where they were. Oh, what a charming family scene. Ben Calvert, the loving father. Mom, how could any man torture his own daughter that way? A girl who's sick.
Torture? That's a pretty strong word, Randy.
Sure it is, but it fits. You know how Kitt's been since she's been ill. This fear she has of her father. Well, when I got to them, he was shouting at her or accusing her of all sorts of things. Well, she was in a terrible state, so I told him to get out. Then when he balked, let's say I escorted him to the door.
Oh, dear.
Why, Mom, he yelled and threatened her until she was almost completely out of her head. Fortunately, Larrabee showed up a few minutes later. He took over and got her quieted down for the time being.
That poor, unfortunate girl. To have to go through an experience like that just when she was making a little progress.
Yeah. When I went back to her after throwing Ben out, she was almost like a little girl. I put my arms around her, and she put her head on my shoulder, the way a child does when he's been hurt or frightened, you know?
She has been hurt, Randy. Deeply hurt. That's why I say she's not to be blamed entirely for the cruel things she's done in the past.
I can see that now, Mom. Although when you first talked to me about it, I couldn't agree with you. When I first went over there, it was only because you asked me to, not because I felt you were right.
Randy, I wish you wouldn't say that. I told you it had to be entirely your own decision. I didn't want to force you.
I know, Mom, you never have. But that time, I didn't have much conviction that you were right. I couldn't help thinking Kitt had it coming to her. Now I've changed my mind.
I'm glad, Randy.
Yeah. Now I see how Kitt's viewpoint was twisted when she was a child. It's as bad as if Ben had maimed her in a physical sense. Only this way, it's her mind that's crippled.
Mm-hmm. But I'm sure Dr. Larrabee hopes to restore Kitt to a normal, healthy life.
Well, as a matter of fact, he's made some headway already. But he's got an awful lot to fight against. Ben's effect on Kitt when she was a child is not to be undone in a few weeks or months. Remember, she was never given any kind of a break. She was never taught that to live with your fellow man, you've got to let him live, too. Gosh, Mom, if she'd only had you to teach her about, consideration for others, about learning to adjust, not expecting to get things without doing your share, you know, all the things you tried to teach me when I was a kid.
Now that she's an adult, the lesson is so much more difficult to learn. There's so much to unlearn before she can start out fresh.
Yeah. And yet, Mom, I honestly believe I could help her a lot. In my own muddling sort of way.
You've never been a muddler, so don't say that.
Well, trying to do something for a person who's been as warped as Kitt's been, that's a pretty large order.
I'm sure Dr. Larrabee believes you can help Randy. Otherwise, he'd never have been so anxious for you to go over there and see her.
Yeah. Yeah, I guess so. Especially now that Kitt's attitude toward me has changed. You see, when I made her father leave, apparently the scene reminded Kitt of that other time when we were kids. The incident she's mentioned over and over in her interviews with Larrabee.
I see. Yes, I can see how it might. Only the other time, when you were children, Ben forced you to leave.
Yeah. And this time the tables were turned. No, Ben sure has her buffaloed.
I believe Kit's always been afraid of Ben.
Mm-hmm. Well, after the doctor took her back to her room, he and I went to his office to talk this whole business over. We were in his office when the nurse phoned that Kitt wanted to see me, that she refused to settle down unless I went to her.
Really?
Yes. Honestly, Mom, you wouldn't have recognized her. She was so sweet and gentle, like a different person.
Yes, I've seen her that way, a long time ago. That's the other side of her, Randy. It's been there all the time, only it's been buried beneath the defenses. The bitterness she's assumed.
Funny. Kitt as much as said that, too, in her own way. She even apologized for the way she's acted since I've been going over there. Said it was because she felt that if she acknowledged I was the person she'd remembered ever since she was a little kid, well, it meant that she had to face reality again. And she was afraid to.
Do you know what she meant, Randy?
I think I do, Mom. You see, ever since that childhood incident when Ben told Kitt she and I weren't allowed to be friends, she's had it on her mind. Not consciously, but unconsciously. And, well, she used it as a justification for her attitude toward people, toward life, for her selfishness.
That's a strange sort of reasoning, isn't it? But I guess it's the basis for a great deal of misery in the world. Instead of analyzing the real reasons and overcoming them, people strike out blindly, trying to take out their own unhappiness on some other innocent person.
Well, one good thing. Kitt recognizes how wrong that attitude has been. I mean, she knows it doesn't work. I don't think it's too late for her to change, do you, Mom?
No, son. And now that she's willing to admit it to herself, that's half the battle. It's funny, isn't it?
What's that, Mom?
Well, despite Ben's intentions, his visit to his daughter turned out to be beneficial, after all. You know, Randy, I wouldn't be at all surprised if Kitt were released from the sanitarium very soon.
Well, Mom, Kitt's still pretty far from completely cured. But the doctor said he was very hopeful of her recovery. That is, he was until today.
Until today?
Yeah. The district attorney called Dr. Larrabee today.
Gerald Craig?
Yeah. He talked to the doctor about the perjury indictment that's hanging over Kitt. And he insists he's going to get the trial started right away.
Rather sudden, isn't it? After he's delayed it all this time?
Not only sudden, Mom, but it's actually cruel. She's in no condition to stand the strain. Well, the effects might be disastrous. It might be the difference between her recovering or never coming out of it at all. And Craig knows it. But do you think he'll wait? Oh, no.
Randy, when Peggy comes in, ask her to fix dinner for you and Lefty, will you? I've got these beans all ready, and there's some roast left from last night. I'll be back later this evening.
Hey, wait a minute, Mom. Where are you going?
I'm going over to Huntsville, Randy. I'm going over and have a talk with Gerald Craig myself.
Usually, when Aunt Mary got that determined tone in her voice, that purposeful look in her eye, Randy Lane felt confident his mother would overcome any obstacle which happened to be in her way. But this time, Randy wasn't so sure. This was a question of the law, of a crime which had undeniably been committed. Would Aunt Mary be able to convince Gerald Craig he should delay the case when Kitt's own psychiatrist hadn't been able to?